Hello and welcome to the Formworks company induction. This induction is designed to give you a bit of an overview of Formworks Limited as a company and also set out what we expect from you from a health and safety perspective as you work for Formworks. This slide is here just to welcome you and give you a bit of an overview as explained in the previous slide. So Formworks is an established concrete placement construction company with a vastly impressive portfolio of formwork builds across Ireland. Formworks began construction on various developments in 2009, and since then the company has grown from strength to strength. It now has in excess of 140 employees working on various different formwork projects. Formworks employs a highly motivated and experienced staff who manage their projects, who focus on quality, health and safety, and budget while delivering a program on time every time. So, as I'm sure everybody's aware, we're currently in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. As such, Formworks Limited, along with the contract partners, have certain requirements that must be adhered to when you attend sites. So what we would prefer you to do, you must ensure that you plan your travel route to ensure that you do not put yourself at risk. What this will mean is it'll planning bus routes, train routes, and whatever type of transport you plan to take to work to ensure that you're not putting yourself at risk. Currently, public transport is operating at a reduced capacity. With this in mind, please be ensured that you set aside adequate time to ensure that you can travel to and from work, that you're not putting yourself in a position where public transport is overcrowded, or if you're using private transport, that you're coming with the same bubble. When you're on site, we'd like you to maintain good levels of hygiene. Regularly washing your hands with warm water is commonly accepted as the best way in which to control the spread of the virus. We also require that you wear a face covering while on site at all times. This obviously could be relaxed when you're eating, drinking, or in a facility that requires you to take your mask off, i.e. canteens. Should you start to feel ill, we would ask you please to stay at home and notify the site team as soon as possible. Formworks Limited will make the relevant phone calls and assist with ensuring that the right advice is given to yourself. Bear in mind that if you come to work ill and you infect other people, you're putting yourself at risk, you're putting your work colleagues at risk, you're putting members of the public at risk, and those at home at risk as well. On top of that, you're also putting the business at risk because if you do have a coronavirus sickness, there is a risk that we could be shut down. As you go around the sites, there will be various degrees of signage. This signage is something that Formworks is currently using. This will be supplemented by the PSCS signage on site also. Please familiarise yourself with the signage. If you have any questions or any queries, please direct your questions to myself, Liam Kelly, or the site team who will be able to assist. These signage should be available in different languages, and again, if you're struggling to understand any of the concepts in these signage, please let me know. So as an employer, we are doing everything that we can within the law to ensure that your work is being conducted as safe as possible. With this in mind, you also, as an employee, have a duty of care for your own health and safety and that of others who may be affected by your activities or your actions. So within the law, you must comply with the relevant laws and protect your own safety, as well as the safety and health of anyone who may be affected by your acts or your omissions while you're at work. You must ensure that you're not under the influence of any intoxicant to the extent that they could be a danger to yourself or while at work, or others while at work. You must cooperate with us and your employer with regard to health and safety and welfare at work. Also, that will also extend to the PSCS, so if you're being asked to do something for health and safety purposes, please ensure that you do comply. You must not engage in any improper conduct that could endanger your own safety or health or that of anyone else. You must participate in any safety and health training offered by ourselves. You must make proper use of all machinery, tools, substances, and all PPE provided for use at work. And you must report any defects in the place of work equipment which might endanger safety and health. So site access. Please only use approved methods of access to the site. And when you first come to the site, you must complete the PSCS induction. You must also have completed this online induction before you do attend the site. In the PSCS induction, this will detail the approved access means to the site, and this is where you should follow. Car parking is only permitted on designated areas only, and it must be mentioned that not all of our sites will have car parking facilities. Please be aware of your vehicle movements in and around car park areas, but this also applies to when you're on site. Travel should be planned with this in mind, as we cannot take any responsibility for any damage or theft in relation to vehicles. If you are involved in driving plant or vehicles on site, you must abide by the speed limits set out. These will be made available when you do attend the site. You must ensure that when you attend a new site that you've signed yourself in and out of site. This will be on a daily basis, and this is a requirement under the COVID regulations. It'll assist with track and trace, but it also assists should anything on the site go wrong. Please keep gates and doors closed at all times, and this obviously would protect the security of the site. So it's just touching on site security. What we would ask is that you please remove any valuables or personal belongings from the site at the end of each shift. Trim Formworks Limited cannot be responsible for any personal belongings or valuables that go missing, and while we will do our best to secure the site, this is not always possible at all times. Therefore, anything that you have of value, please do not leave it around where it is in the position to be taken. Where vehicles are not permitted on site, you must ensure that you've made arrangements for securing your vehicle before coming to the site. This will include parking in a safe place, and again remember that the Trim Formworks cannot be held responsible for any theft, loss or damage of vehicles or personal belongings. Trim Formworks does supply a lot of tools, plant and equipment. And what we would ask, if you are supplied with a piece of equipment supplied by Trim Formworks, that these materials, these equipment are not left unattended on site. If there is another contractor who would like a loan of certain equipment, you must run this by the site management on the day, and this must be authorised by them. Please do not loan out tools, equipment or plant to other contractors without authorisation. So welfare facilities. Welfare will be supplied by the PSCS. Please inform Liam Kelly or the site manager should these facilities be inadequate. When on site, food must only be eaten in designated areas, and please ensure all rubbish is placed in the bins provided. Should bins not be available, please inform your foreman or your site manager. Please respect the facilities and keep them clean. This will involve not graffitiing on walls. Anyone misusing the facilities will be removed from site immediately. Tea breaks and lunch breaks will be confirmed on site by the site manager. These have the potential currently to be staggered due to the COVID pandemic. Training. Every person working on site must have the following competencies before being permitted to site. A safe pass, a valid safe pass, or accepted one-day safety course attendance. This will be confirmed during the pre-checks after you've completed this induction. A valid manual handling certificate must also be supplied, and the CAF COVID induction must be completed before you attend site. Should any of this information be missing, access to the site will not be permitted, and if you come on the day with these details not completed, there's a strong possibility that you will not be granted access to the site. Training continued. So every person working on site involved in the following activities must have the following competencies. If you're driving plant, you must have a valid plant card and a valid driving license if that is applicable to the particular bit of plant that you want to use. For anybody cutting, and this will include those using any sort of saw, whether that be a skill saw, con saw, anything that's involved in cutting activity, you must be abrasive wheels trained. If you're working at height, you may need some of the following competencies. If you're moving a mute, you will need a ticket for that move or a valid competency to say that you can move this. Working at height should be issued to anybody who will be working at height. Harness and lanyard training for anybody who needs to use a harness and a lanyard. Slinger, signaller for or banksman, it could be called, for anybody involved in lifts or working at height. And anybody who plans to build aluminium towers should also have a ticket for this. Please do not complete any activities that you have not been trained for. Should you be required to complete a job and not have the correct ticket, please let your foreman know and we will do our best to try and help with this competency. Accidents, incidents and near misses. Should you be involved in or witness an accident, please use the following process. If it's required, please contact the emergency services. If you're not first aid trained, please call for a first aider. Assist with making the situation safe, but this is only if you can guarantee your own safety in doing so. Contact the trim site management at their earliest safe opportunity and participate and cooperate with trim, the EHS manager, to establish the facts surrounding the incident. Remember, all incidents are preventable and all unsafe acts and conditions must be reported to Trim Formworks. Should you require first aid or be required to administer first aid will be available on site. The PSCS will inform you of the first aid arrangements when you attend site. This should be covered in the site induction. Please inform Trim if you have been first aid trained and we'll add you to the register. Should you have any concerns about the first aid on site, please raise the issue with Trim Formworks and we'll look to resolve at the earliest opportunity. Fire and emergency. Evacuate the site if you hear the emergency alarm or you're asked to leave by the site manager. You should always leave via the nearest exit route and report to the assembly point. The PSCS will instruct you on induction where the assembly point will be and ensure you get there as soon as physically possible. A PSCS fire warden will liaise with the emergency services. They'll complete the roll call and will issue further instruction. Please remain at the assembly point until you're given the all clear and do not under any circumstances return to retrieve personal items from the site. Smoking, alcohol and drugs. Smoking, including e-cigarettes, is only permitted in designated areas and is not allowed in any vehicle. The consumption of alcohol whilst at work is not permitted, and taking of non-prescribed drugs or being under the influence of non-prescribed drugs whilst at work is not permitted. You must make sure your line manager is aware of any prescribed medications likely to affect your performance at work, and anyone deemed to be under the influence of alcohol or non-prescribed drugs will be suspended immediately pending an investigation. Risk assessments and method statements. Risk assessments and method statements are completed by the EHS manager with the input from the site team. The risk assessments and method statements, or RAMs as they are called, should be followed to ensure that you're safe while completing your works. It is your responsibility to read the RAMs. Please ensure that you sign the RAMs after reading, and please let us know if you think there is a safer or a better way of completing the works. We encourage you to participate in keeping you safe. Personal protective equipment, or PP as it's known. Certain PP must be worn at all times. This will include safety footwear including the steel toe cap, hard hat, high visibility clothing, safety glasses and gloves. There's certain PP that may be required dependent on the site or the risk assessment. So currently the risk assessments mention that face coverings should be worn to protect you from COVID-19. This should be adhered to where possible. Goggles and a visor may be required, such as in cutting activities like cutting of steel. Hearing protection may also be required where there's excessive loud noise. A harness would be required in certain circumstances while working at work. And RPE, so respiratory protective equipment, would be required for some cutting activities, including cutting of plywood, any sort of wood materials, and or the cutting of concrete. Permits. The PSCS may require that you have a permit before completing works, and some permits may include hot works permits, close working permits, ladder permits, and confined space permits. Please check with the foreman and the PSCS what is required and all controls are to be followed. Ensure that you have the correct permit in place before commencing works. Housekeeping. Trim management will expect works areas, plant and equipment and require defects affecting health and safety to be rectified. A clear as you go policy must be adopted and enforced. All equipment, waste and materials must be cleared away as soon as the job is complete. Warning signage is to be used where appropriate and cordless tools are to be used whenever possible. On the right hand side of the screen you'll see two areas. The first area with the red X is a job that's been completed, however the materials weren't removed. And the green tick below shows the same area after the area has been cleaned. Remember, housekeeping is your responsibility. If you make the mess, you clear the mess. Please ensure that you're working within a clean, tidy area at all times. Tools, plant and equipment. Only 110-volt tools may be used on the site unless otherwise agreed. Damaged electrical cables should be removed from site ASAP, such as what you see here on the right hand side with the red X. There's been 2 damages to the sheath and this could cause electrocution. Do not operate or use tools, plant and equipment unless you're competent to do so. Do not operate any tools, plant or equipment that does not belong to you or another company without permission. And all plant, tools and equipment are to be regularly inspected and tested and maintained. Should you bring new tools to site, please make sure they have been declared and they're added to the plant register. Concrete. Concrete and cement products, if not controlled, can cause dermatitis, skin burns, skin sensitization, and eye damage. To ensure you mitigate this, you must ensure you clean up your works areas as you go. Avoid contact with the skin. Good hygiene and regular hand washing of the arms and the face. Safe manual handling techniques should be used at all times, and you must wash thoroughly after completing. Use of barrier cream in this instance is also recommended. Full PP must be worn at all times. This is no exception to this. Dust. Nuisance dust can often have long-term health effects as well as making you uncomfortable whilst working. If working in dusty conditions, adequate dust masks, either FFP2 or FFP3, and eye protection must be worn. Be aware of others in the area prior to creating dust and advise them that dusty works are about to commence. They may need to leave the area. Minimize the chance of dust spreading by means of spraying water where possible. This will mean with an adequate connection and a dust suppression bottle, pouring of water on the works area will not suffice. Ensure adequate ventilation is being considered where possible. Abrasive wheels. Powerful machines such as skill saws and con saws, if not used correctly, can cause serious injury. To use abrasive wheels, you must have been abrasive wheels trained. These machines should only be used and have replacement discs fitted by competent persons in accordance with the abrasive wheels regulations. When using disc cutters, PP must always be worn. That will include eye protection, gloves, dust masks, whatever the risk assessment mentions as a reasonable PP use, you must be wearing. Always inspect the discs for wear prior to use. Access and egress. Please ensure that you consider access and egress arrangements when you're working on site. Please comply with the following. Keep all access and egress free from materials. Assess areas where you and your fellow work colleagues will be working. Consider emergency evacuation or arrangements if there is an injury. Report issues with access and egress to a member of the trim management team who will work to get this corrected. In the photograph shown, materials have been stored at the base of a ladder, making it difficult to access, and also would make it difficult should there be an emergency situation. Steel. Working in and around steel can be dangerous due to the risk of impalement. slips, trips and falls, and manual handling risks. To ensure these risks are mitigated, please ensure measuring caps must be used on exposed steel. This is your responsibility, and please all work together to ensure that this is being completed. Never block and solid access routes with materials, as shown in the picture on the right hand side. And before cutting, obtain a hot works permit with a fire extinguisher. You will also be required to wear goggles. Please ensure that this is done. Clean as you go, do not leave offcuts behind, and ensure that no smoking is permitted on site. Should you require a smoke, you must do that in a designated area. Again, we need to all work together for the same common goal, and that's to ensure everybody's safe. Working at height. While completing the rising elements, shuttering or pouring, there will be a requirement to work at height. The nature of this works means that you'll no doubt be working at height at some stage, and the following should be followed. Training for all those who plan to work at height, you must complete some working at height training. MUPs or pop-ups must be used where reasonably practicable, and ladders are to be used as a last resort for short duration works. Ladders must be tied off or footed, a harness must be worn while working at height, and no works are to be completed near a leading edge where the height exceeds the handrail. The photograph on the right hand side was taken of an operative working with no harness at the edge of a building. Should he have failed, the consequences would have been very severe. Concrete must be poured from a suitable platform. If no suitable platform is available, please ensure the site management is made aware in good enough time. Ladders. Ladders are only permitted for short duration works where podium steps or mobile scaffold towers will not be suitable. A harness will be required while in use, and the ladders must be constructed of sound material and free from defects. Ladders must be visually inspected before use and checked weekly and added to the ladder register. Broken or damaged ladders must never be used. Keep 3 points of contact to the steps at all times. Never overreach. This is the most common cause of falls from ladders. Scaffolding. Only trained and competent personnel are to carry out scaffolding erection or dismantling. Never interfere with the scaffolding, especially ties or boards, and never throw items from scaffolding. Check that scaffolds are complete before using them. Partially erected or dismantled scaffolds must not be used, and ensure that scaffolds are not overloaded or cluttered with debris. Always use ladders to gain access to scaffold and never climb the standards. While we don't deal with scaffolding per se, we may from time to time need to be working from this area. Please ensure it's safe to do so. Environment. All employees of TRIM should ensure all waste is placed in correct skips or bins. Employees must ensure that all waste, where possible, is added to the relevant waste receptacle and not general waste skip containers. Do not burn waste on site. Do not dispose of surplus materials which may be reused. Do not leave engines running on vehicles unnecessarily. Where possible, avoid creating dust, and reduce the site waste by returning packaging and pallets with suppliers if applicable. Respect at work. It is expected that respect will be shown to all of your workmates regardless of their nationality, religion, race, or any disabilities that they may have. Should you be seen to be disrespectful at any stage regarding either of these topics, it could result in suspension and ultimately removal from site. Lastly, if you have any questions off the back of this induction, please contact the site manager when you do go to site, or alternatively direct your questions to the EHS manager, Liam Kelly. I appreciate you taking the time out to do this online induction, and stay safe. Thank you.